Hello, UMA alumni, and welcome to the UMA Alumni Association September webinar, Empathy in Action. I'm your host, Caitlin, and joining me is Raquel Reyes, the Training Manager for Health and Human Services in Ultimate Medical Academy's Career Services Department. Raquel has been with UMA since 2016, and she has a passion for helping others reach the next level of success in their lives, no matter what it takes. She spends any extra time volunteering with local at-risk youth and adult nonprofits, and she believes heavily in the power of positive communication and new beginnings. Raquel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm so excited to be here with you all today, and I can't wait to dive into a topic that means so much to me.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. But before we begin, let's go over a quick breakdown of the webinar for our listeners. Raquel will speak for roughly 20 minutes and leave about 10 minutes at the end for a question and answer session. You can send your questions in the answer box at any time, and we'll collect them and address as many as possible at the end, in the questions box, If you experience any audio issues during the webinar, try exiting out of your current browser and opening up the webinar in a different browser. We also recommend closing out of other pages and applications to help the platform run as smooth as possible. We also wanted to let you know that you're muted to prevent noise interference during the webinar. So if you have a question, please be sure to send it in the questions box since we can't hear you. Last but not least, the webinar is being recorded and will be sent to participants to view shortly after the webinar concludes. Okay, Raquel, take it away.
Thanks again, Caitlin, and thank you for joining me, UMA alumni. In today's webinar, we're going to chat about what it means to be empathetic, why empathy should be important to you, and discuss steps that you can take to put empathy into action in your life. So we're going to start off really slow, right? We're going to ask ourselves a couple of quick questions. I want you to ask yourself things like, am I struggling through communication with my support system? Maybe with my peers or coworkers, even potential employers. Am I struggling through my own self-speak? Any kind of obstacles in my life currently? And do I have trouble knowing how to react to situations, either negative or positive? A lot of these simple questions are questions that many of us have. And understanding empathy and how to implement it in our daily lives can help us become better communicators with ourselves and with others. So today we're going to discuss what you might be contributing to some of these concerns, what you can control, and how to bridge those gaps to achieve your goals. Now, before we get too ahead of ourselves, though, I want to make sure that we're defining what empathy means. So simply, what is empathy? The ability to understand and share feelings. It may often be confused with its cousin, sympathy, which is a feeling of sorrow or pity for oneself or others. It's important to identify that these two are very different, even though similar meanings, because empathy is important to help us understand how others feel so we can respond appropriately to the situation and also build meaningful connections with those that we're working with, right? So to put it into more perspective, empathy might be walking a mile in someone else's shoes, while sympathy is being sorry that their feet hurt. Rebecca O'Donnell said it most perfectly.
I love that quote. That's an awesome quote.
Thank you. So I put in some examples for you guys to kind of start thinking about how sympathetic responses might sound. So when you're communicating with someone, it's one of the easiest things you could say, especially if you don't know what to say right away, is, I want to make sure I understand, and then leave a ... there, right? You're going to kind of repeat to them what they may have already said or what they might be going through to make sure that you're on the same page that they're on. Another thing that you could say is, what I'm hearing is that you're feeling, and then put a ... there too. Include what they may have just said that they're going through, how they may be feeling in that situation, and then ask them if that's right. Ask them if you got their explanation right. So first you have an understanding of where they're coming from. Other things you can say are, thank you for sharing that with me. Is there anything else you would like to share? Obviously, thanking someone for an action that might not be typical to them is one of the best ways to get them to repeat that action again in the future. You don't want to stifle communication, so even just saying thank you is a great diving board to get to the next step. Maybe offering what you could do for them. I would like to, and then leave that open-ended as well. I'd like to help you in this way. I'd like to do this for you. I'd like to think about things this way. And then ask them what they think. Make them a part of it as well. Other things like, what has this been like for you? How can I help? What can I do right now? Maybe what do you feel like your next step should be, or what can you control today? Get them thinking about what they can contribute that might help them get out of the situation that they're in. And remember, you can ask yourself these questions as well, right? What are you controlling? What are you contributing? What can you do right now that's going to get you to that next step? Now, to put a spin on it, I'm going to give you some examples of sympathy and how they differ, right? So obviously, and you can hear it, it's up on the slide, but these are things like, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry for you. Wow, that sounds crazy. This is a big one that we use to fill a void when we don't know what else to say, but really just saying that sounds crazy, sounds pretty crazy. I don't know what to do. I can't believe it. Now, I know that's a filler that sounds like it might be helpful, but if you don't know what to do and then you reach out to someone else for help and they don't know what to do either, we're not getting very far. So I want to put out an example for you guys. You can't see it, but let's just imagine that your phone is next to you or somewhere close, and the entire screen right now, you just dropped it on the floor and it's shattered into pieces everywhere. You can barely see your phone screen. You might get a screen cut if you cut the glass the wrong angle, right? I did this the other day, and I'm sitting in my living room when it happened, and my eyes almost felt like they were going to well, and my cousin was sitting on the couch, and granted, he's 19, but he was like, whoa, crazy. How are you going to pay for that? And of course, immediately I'm like, I have no idea. What am I going to do? How do I get out of this situation? So I call my sister, who's 10 years older than me and very wise, and I was like, Tiff, I ruined my phone. It's shattered everywhere. How am I even going to use it? I have work email here. I have very important things. And she said, no worries. Simple fix. I reached out to this guy a couple weeks ago when your nephew shattered his iPad. Reach out to him. He was super helpful. It's going to be $40. And I immediately felt better. My sister didn't change what I was going through. My phone was not fixed, and I was still out $40+. But the way that she responded to me let me know that I wasn't the only one that had ever been through that situation before, and really just made me feel empowered to make the next move for myself. So the negative impact of sympathy, right, other than how I just explained, is a little bit lame and also is a product of multiple different side effects. Sympathetic perspective tends to place you above the other. It essentially says, I'm fine and you've got a problem. It accentuates a victim state of mind, and it disempowers someone to resolve this self-limiting point of view. It's not a good feeling, right? So to further understand the impact of sympathy versus empathy, let's take a look at the parking lot experiment. I want you guys to follow along on the screen with me so I don't lose you. And please, absolutely, go ahead and look up this experiment afterward. We've included the link here, and it will be sent out to you so that you can see the whole experiment yourself. But basically, in a 2017 study done by Soul Pancake, a group of 8 participants were run through an experiment on empathy versus sympathy in a theory based by Professor Dr. Brene Brown. So to sum this up, 8 people are brought into a room, and they're all given a happiness survey. On this happiness survey, they run through a list of questions, and it comes up with a quantifiable percentage of how happy these people are. During this survey, a person from the company comes into the room and tells each of these 8 people individually that they just got a parking ticket outside. The group grows visibly upset, some of them throwing their hands up in the air. Why me? How did this happen? I knew I did the right thing. Now, the person that administered the test was going to respond to these people, 4 with empathy and 4 getting sympathetic responses. So the empathetic responses look something like, oh, I've been there too, this is how I got out of this situation, this is what you should do to feel better about what happened. And the people that were afforded sympathy got, oh, that sucks, could have been worse, at least it wasn't towed. Now, after this little experiment, the test was issued again, just to see how these people would feel, right? Now, again, in this scenario, the empathy that they received or the sympathy that they received didn't take away the fact that they got that parking ticket. They all still thought that they had to pay $60, $70, $80 back to their city, right? But after taking the test again, the 4 recipients that received empathy in their responses as opposed to sympathy were 7% more happy just to receive a response to make them feel like they weren't alone in the situation. And I don't know about you, but 7% in perspective could be a lot. It could be one whole person in your life. It could be your employer. It could be out of a couple coworkers. It could be half. You know what I mean? So this is an important statistic in knowing that the way that you respond to people and the way that you're willing to communicate means everything for what you're able to do with that relationship. I want to have you keep this in mind and discuss a couple of different types of empathy and how each type can help you connect with others. The first type I want to talk to you about here is cognitive empathy. Now, cognitive empathy is the ability to understand how a person feels, what they might be thinking. Cognitive empathy helps us be better communicators because it helps us relay information in a way that best reaches the other person. Now, I want you to think about the situations or scenarios in your life where you could use cognitive empathy, and it may not just be one, right? If you want to understand how a person feels or what they might be thinking, this might be more personal situations for you, right? Maybe a spouse or children, your loved ones, people closer to you, because you really want to understand what's going on in their head, how they feel, and come up with a response that works for them. This may also be how you decide to respond to yourself, right? How are you feeling? What should your next step be? And then we move into a little bit more of emotional empathy, which is also known as affective empathy. This is the ability to share feelings of another person. Some describe it as your pain in my heart. This type of empathy helps you build emotional connections with others. So you may use this more in a workplace, right? To try and help your patients or to help those in the healthcare setting that you're looking to better their lives. You may also use this in your personal life or with your employers or with people that you're working with now still at the school, any kind of advisors that you have, or local agencies that assist you. You want to make sure that you guys are on the same page and know what the next plan of attack is so that you can get to that next step in your life as well. The last form of empathy I really want to make sure that you guys know about is compassionate empathy. This one you're absolutely going to use in your field of study. It's also known as empathetic concerns. It goes beyond simply understanding others and sharing their feelings. It actually moves us to take action to help however we can. I hope that you use this in every facet of your life, but especially moving into the healthcare field, coming up on your new career opportunities, helping the patients in your care. This is going to move you to be a better healthcare professional, offer the services that you need, advocate for your patients, and really take action in an organization. It's going to make sure employers take note of you, make sure your family and loved ones take note of you, and it's really going to make you feel empowered to support yourself better as well. While using these definitions, to take a closer look at yourself and think about how you can use empathy in your life to come up with solutions as opposed to falling victim to your circumstances. So there's a bunch of different situations where empathy would apply, and I want you to follow along with the slides so we can talk through some of those things. These are kind of an extension of what I mentioned when we first started talking, right? So questions that you might be asking yourself or others around you is, have you had real talk with your support system, right? Who are those people? And are you having deep dive level conversations or just surface level communication with them? By that I mean, are you just scratching the surface of bare minimum communication, or are you really trying to let them in, let them know you, let yourself into their life, let yourself know them? Are you having these conversations with your advisors, yourself, your loved ones? Have you communicated the specifics to your current situation, what your goals might be, what's currently stopping you, what are you doing about it, right? What are you doing to change what might be currently stopping you, or what your goals are? What are you doing to get to your goals? What might your boundaries look like, and why do you have those boundaries set up? Boundaries aren't a bad thing, but maybe we can break some of those down if we really try to ask ourselves why we have them in the first place. But what are you able to commit to? And are you being realistic with yourself? That's the most important thing. You can't expect much from anyone else if you can't expect it from yourself. You are your biggest advocate, your biggest friend, your biggest supporter, and you need to make sure that you're being realistic, both positive and negatively, with yourself. What have you done to make yourself relatable to your peers, coworkers, or potential employers? And by that I mean, what commonalities might you be sharing? And when differences arise, what are you doing to try and understand rather than get defensive? We all have an opinion. There's no question about that, and most of us have a good opinion in our own perspective, right? Because your perspective is your reality, but that doesn't mean we can't accept someone else's as their reality. Even if you don't share it, what are you doing to at least try to understand where they're coming from so you can work together to get to the next step? Now, also, are you just listening or are you actively participating in the conversation? And I know you guys probably already know what this means, right? You're looking somebody in the eye or trying to hold a conversation with them and they're just yesing you. They're But what are you doing to dive more into that? Ask some questions. Seek to understand what that person might be trying to communicate to you. And I want to make sure that you guys are looking at this from a positive perspective too, right? I think too often we overlook all the wonderful things going on in life for the negative because we've got so many spinning plates. So stop to celebrate your successes and the successes of others as well. I want to know how you're currently reacting or responding to your current support system, your advisors, your peers, even potential employers, right? Because your reaction and how you deliver information back could mean everything to these persons in your life as well. Do you know what to do when problems arise? Do you know who to contact or how to help? Are you currently expressing, like I mentioned before, excitement or sharing good news, right? Not often do we have exciting news that we feel like is worth sharing, so we should make every positive outcome and exciting news worth sharing. That'll change your perspective. It'll change the next person's perspective. I think you'll get a lot more out of your path if you're doing that for yourself as well. And when you don't know what to say, are you just shutting down, giving the wrong impression or the wrong advice? Now, this is important for yourself as well because I want you to make sure you're your biggest advocate, like I said before. So are you seeking out the knowledge and the understanding that you need to make the best guess or the best estimation for yourself and the next person? So while you guys are considering this, and it's a little bit to consider, just a little, I want to make sure that you guys know that there's a way to plan around this, right? It's not just thinking about these things or how I can implement these things. It's actually putting a plan into place. And some of that is going to be starting with just writing it all out, right? So my first example is to write a journal about different ideas for yourself, career paths you have, things that may stop you from moving forward, and most of all, determine your why. I know that sounds silly, but if you don't even know why, no one else ever will, right? And then no other questions can be asked because you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So I want you to make sure that you're planning around this. Write some things down. Think about, what do I want? Where am I going? How can I get there and who can help me? I want you to research your local area too. Find businesses that are hiring, local resources that are available. There's a community action in almost every city and state, and people that work there that are literally prepared to help you with the things that you're looking for assistance in, whether that be a listening ear or a way to get some more assistance for your family or yourself or otherwise. Reach out to your community because there's people that are willing to help. There's also a lot of community and local events where you can network yourself. You can network yourself to employers, to other community members, to friends, maybe local organizations that will help you the next time that you need assistance, and maybe you don't need them right now, but you could. I want you to create some pro and con lists, wants versus needs lists, and then decide what you might be willing to give up and what you're willing to do, right? An org chart is always the best way to go, especially if you don't know what your next step is, and maybe you don't have to do that by yourself. Call your advisor, phone a friend. Hey, I want to talk something out with you. These are the pros. These are the cons. Where should I go with this? What's my next move? Identify and communicate your wants, needs, interests, and obstacles to your support team and your advisors. I don't know what I don't know. Neither do you. You know what I mean? So share that. Give that information to the next person and hope and anticipate that they are going to do the right thing with it, especially if they're an advocate for you on your journey here, right? So reach out to us, reach out to those people in your life that you trust to do right with that information and to help you get out of that communication and come up with a plan for it. Some other things that I want you guys to consider, and this is a big one for me, right? I said come up with and express a bad day plan. This is a big one for me because my bad day plan looks a little rough right now. I crawl into bed, I turn off my phone, I don't talk to anyone, my sister, my grandmother, they're calling the National Guard, I'm in trouble, right? But we want to know that. It's okay if your bad day plan might look similar, but if you don't tell anyone that, the National Guard is going to be knocking at your door. So I want you to make a list of people you can contact and let your support team know you're struggling. Even if that's just a text. Hey, not a good day for me. This is what I'm going through. Communication is key. Everyone needs support. We can only support you, though, if you let us know. And yourself. Be honest with yourself. If you're having a bad day, tell yourself that too, and then tell us, or, everyone. I want you to participate in conversations with peers, family members, coworkers, about things going on in their life. Maybe you can compare your situations and build bonds that way. I don't know about you, but there is a true quote in the world. It's called "Misery Loves Company." I know it's not the best quote, but it's true. But also success loves company. If you're going through something and someone else has been through that too, they want to share in that with you. You rally each other. You get excited for each other. Share the things that you're going through, because at the very least you'll have, well, I say it here and I'm going to say it again in a minute, another ally. Set expectations for yourself and for others. Follow a calendar with deadlines and then follow through on them. I am the biggest advocate of setting deadlines and expectations. And then I am the biggest headache when it comes to following through. I do that to myself, right? And I know that. So follow through, if not for anyone else but yourself, because then you can say that you did, right? I want you to properly celebrate yourself, your loved ones, your people. Give yourself and those around you credit for the small wins. Thank yourself and others for getting this far. I want you to make sure that you are always, always, always taking a minute to celebrate the small things. That is one of the most important things. And also, as I mentioned before, be sure to seek additional assistance when you don't know the right answer or how to solve a problem. You'll gain knowledge and, like I said, another ally.
Wow, that was awesome, Raquel. I can't wait to use all these steps to create my own empathy and action plan and see how my relationships will improve. So exciting.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, it's time to answer some questions. So if you haven't already, please submit any questions you have for Raquel into the answers box so we can answer them for you. All right, we'll wait a couple seconds for the questions to start coming in.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, first question. How do you respond empathetically to a coworker that just seems to be negative all the time?
That's a very great question. And I know this is a cliche term too, but sometimes killing someone with kindness is the best medicine. And there's empathy in that as well, right? Now, if that person is negative, maybe sharing a negative experience might be a good diving space, right? But you don't want to sit in that negativity. So bringing them up to your level is also going to be the next thing that's important. So if you're more bubbly or energetic and you want to bring them out of that, really responding in any kind of kindness that you can. What can I do for you today? How can I help you today? What would support you today, right? Even if you're not their support person, maybe become that for the day so that whatever is negative going on in their life seems like not that big of a deal, right? I've got somebody here that's willing to help me even if they don't know what I'm going through. That also might allow them an avenue to truly open up what's actually going on so that they can feel better about the negativity going on in their life as well.
Okay, great. So talking about a bad day plan, is there really a wrong answer there? Does the bad day plan have to list out everybody that you have to contact? You have to contact everybody in your bad day plan. Can you just go a little bit more detail about what goes into a bad day plan?
Sure. So that's a great question. For me right now, my bad day plan looks like at least communicating what's going on with me, with my team here, right, and with my sister. My sister is a good kind of support person that lets all the other people in my life know what's going on. So you don't necessarily need to tell everyone, but I would say pick a person from your professional life and from your personal life. Let them know, usually from your professional life, it's probably your boss. Let them know, and then let them share enough of that general information with the rest of your support team so everyone is on the same page. But there's really no wrong answer for what you choose to do during your bad day plan, as long as you're willing to communicate that to someone. You may not even need to tell me all the details. As long as I know it is a bad day, then I can check on you and we can move forward on the next day.
Okay, great. So next question.
Ooh, some good questions rolling in.
What should I do when I offer my help but someone always rejects you?
That's a fantastic question. Now, not everyone is going to be receptive to your help, and maybe not everyone needs it. However, they might just be reluctant to accept it in that moment, right? I offer assistance to everyone in my life. My graduate friends, my coworker friends, everyone that I possibly can. And sometimes I'm met with kind of repel initially, right? Sometimes that's because they're just not trusting of me immediately, and that's okay too. Maybe they've been burned in the past, maybe they don't have a support system currently, and they see me as a threat, and I can understand that because I've been in a place where I felt the lack of support too. So the first nice person is like, whoa, 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 what do you want from me, right? So I would urge you to maybe try again, right? Consider that they may not be receptive to your approach at first just because they're not used to it, but don't risk your health and your mental capacity for it either. If you try and it doesn't work, then hands off. Back up a little bit. You can still check on them, you can still be in their life, but don't risk your mental support and your capacity to affect others just because this one person isn't ready yet.
Okay, great. Okay, next question. Is it bad for me to show too much empathy towards others? I have been told that a couple of times.
You and me both. So this is a double-edged sword because I'd love to say, no way, be as empathetic as you want. But absolutely, there's a way to just show too much care and too much concern. And that kind of bleeds into the last question that I asked. Maybe somebody's just not ready for that support. But if somebody is telling you that you're giving too much and they've asked for it, then I would say, all right, maybe I've given too much in this specific situation. But if they haven't and you're giving too much, maybe you're just directing it to the wrong people, right? So I don't want you to feel like you are too much until you really address the fact that you may just not be sharing the great things about you with the right audience right now, and wait for that audience to come around. But I think that's a great question and also something that I struggle with. So you are not wrong for questioning that, but you are not wrong to continue to be empathetic with people.
Okay, so Margaret's asking where can we find this information for personal use. So again, the webinar will be posted on our YouTube channels, our social media channels, and also we're going to email it to all of you afterwards. You can go through it on your own time and soak up all the awesome tips that Raquel has given us today. Okay, this will be our last question. How do you work through a non-existent support group at home?
Ooh, that's a very good question. First, I would like to say if that's something that you're going through currently, I apologize that that's a struggle for you. It's hard to feel like you might be going it alone a little bit. So I want to start by saying if you would need a support that's not at home, I would love to be an advocate for you. So please feel free to reach out to me after this. I'll send my email address out, or I'll work with Caitlin to get it out. But in the meantime, if you don't have the support at home that you're looking for, the best route to go about that is get involved in your community, right? There's no better, you can't act off of inaction. You can't just dwell in it. I want you to get out there and advocate for yourself. Maybe if it's a sporting event or an arts and crafts festival that you like and you can meet some of the vendors, or maybe a local community center that's holding some different types of events there, or different places that you can meet people in your local community that can become your friends and that can become your family. And if that doesn't work, please, by all means, reach out to maybe even some of the students that you met when you were in school here. They may not be as close to you physically, but that doesn't mean that they can't get close to you emotionally and be that support you're looking for. But again, I would love to advocate for any of our current students or our alumni. So if I can be a helping hand and a communication point for anyone, I would be happy to help with that as well.
Okay, so I know that I said that was the last question, but we actually just got a really good one in that I think Raquel would love to answer. So this is the last question. What do you do after trying to show empathy to somebody, but they keep doing the same things wrong to be put in a certain situation, and then they get upset when they don't show empathy for the situation again, when you don't show empathy for the situation again?
That's a very good question. And I know I've said that a couple of times, but man, you guys are giving me some good things that would make me think too, right? So I'm going to put myself in this situation personally because it sounds maybe similar to a personal situation of mine. But sometimes really making sure that that person understands that they might be contributing to that situation is the best place to start. I don't know about you, but sometimes, whether it be life in general or love or a relationship or a specific person, you just can't see the negativity in a situation because you're so invested in the potential of positivity, right? So this person for you might be very invested in all the things that they're doing right and not necessarily realizing everything that they're doing wrong and everything that they're doing to contribute. And the best way to address that type of situation is not to make statements. Never make a statement, always to ask questions. Well, I see what you're saying. I understand what you're going through. However, this sounds similar to the last time you might have been in this situation. What did you do differently? What has changed? What have you done, right? What are you willing to take ownership of? A lot of times we soften the blow of being, it doesn't come off as antagonistic if you're asking someone a question. I don't know if you guys have recognized that as well. Maybe sometimes when communicating with spouses or with your children, it's always better to say, well, what does that look like for you than I think you did whatever it is, right? Because then you're not coming at them, you're asking for them to see something for themselves. So I think the best route for you to go is to understand they may just not be seeing the situation for what it is and ask them some pointed questions about what they're willing to do to change their portion of ownership here.
Wow, that's a great advice, Raquel. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you still have any questions, please email social@ultimatemedical.edu. It's up on the screen there. And we'll connect you with Raquel to answer any questions you have. If you need career services assistance, as always, please give us a call. The number's on the screen. We hope you enjoyed this webinar, and if you did, please take a second to let us know something you've learned or your favorite tip by posting it on social media. Be sure to use the hashtag UMAwebinar. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.